Okay, digressing a bit, is this your first time in the Philippines when you were assigned here as ambassador?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sure you formed some impressions before you left Spain, as soon as you reached the Philippines, and after a few months. How do you relate your impressions to what you actually are seeing?
Well, before coming to the Philippines, I always had in my mind a very good relationship with all the Filipino people I had encountered professionally. Back in Madrid, I have been taking care of UN matters, and I had the opportunity to work with Filipino diplomats in New York, Geneva, Vienna, etc. And they have always been very good colleagues, and we have been able to do many things together. So my first experience before coming to the Philippines was good personally, and then in my mind I always had the idea of a very friendly country, a country which is near Spain, and especially to the part of the country I come from, Cadiz, who has always had a great relationship with the Philippines. You still, after a long time in which Spain and the Philippines started to have a history separate one from the other, you can still find many signs of our common past. In Cadiz, you can find still furniture who came from here. You can find what we used to call these shawls, Mantón de Manila. You have the mayón. You have the what they call the biombo, which are these in French they call auparavant shades, the shades, typical shades that came from Manila also. So there was a lot of crafts that came from here. So Manila was in the common conscience of the Spanish of my area. So we had this history of a romantic past together, no? And when I have arrived here in the Philippines, I've only been here now for 3 months. I found a vibrant country with a great potential for economic development, which I hope takes root. Now we are in a decade which will be very important for this country to be able to get along with the group of Asian countries who really are leading the growth in the economic growth in the world. And then you have another asset, which is the Filipino people, who you have first-class professionals with very good universities, although many people go to the US to study, but I have to say that your universities are a very good quality. So all in all, the experience has been good, and then the reception by the people has been excellent.
3 months is not a very long time. What areas or tourist spots have you seen so far in 3 months, and what do you look forward to seeing as you stay in the Philippines?
So far I haven't moved outside Manila because it's been quite busy, with all getting to get acquainted with all the political, social and economic elite in the Philippines before moving outside.
I understand you initiated the first ever Spain-Philippines Investment and Business Cooperation Forum. This is one of the first things you, I think, successfully organized as the ambassador. Can you tell us something about this?
Well, it was a great pleasure that shortly after I arrived, we had this first forum, which was really needed, because if you look at the level of relationship we have with the Philippines, it's very good from a political point of view. We have a very fluid relationship. The leadership in both countries has been, in the last decades, very well connected. There is very good complicity between both sides. Culturally, we have done many things together. But if you look at the economic figures, our trade with the Philippines has a lot to grow yet, and our direct investment in the Philippines is also very small compared to the figures, not only the global figures, because as you know, Spain is the 8th direct investor in the world, but in relative terms compared with the other countries of the area. For example, with a country with which we have much less relationship than with the Philippines historically, like Vietnam. Nowadays we have five-fold trade balance than the one we have with the Philippines. So there's a big difference. We have a great field ahead of us to grow and improve. This forum brought to the Philippines a group of Spanish firms which are interested in establishing themselves here in the Philippines and finding partners so they can set up their business here. And I hope that many of the 30 firms that came over will find that business opportunity, and that we will see more Spanish firms around. Having said that, there are quite a number of Spanish firms which already have developed a presence in the Philippines, but there's much more to do.
Mr. Ambassador, quoting you, you have several folds better trade relationship with other countries compared to the Philippines. I'm sure there are some stumbling blocks which we have seen, some problems that needed to be ironed out. Can you give us an idea of what these are, what these stumbling blocks are, and what kind of work do you have cut out for you in your stay as ambassador in the Philippines, initially also to promote better trade and commerce between our two countries?
Well, I think that we both have to do the homework together. There's some things that we can improve on the Spanish side and some things that have to be done on the Filipino side. We both have to work on a better knowledge of our respective countries. Nowadays, although we all know something about Spain and the Philippines, or something about the Philippines and Spain, the young people have a very shady knowledge of things. So the first thing would try and get to the general public the knowledge about our respective countries. But the second thing we have to do is provide our businessmen with an atmosphere and a legal framework which allows them to work safely and with confidence in what they are doing. I think if we do that, then the rest will come alone, because the Philippines is a market which is growing enormously. For Spain, clearly, I think it has an advantage to become the door of Asia for many of the Spanish investments, to use the Philippines as the place from which to be able to penetrate other markets here. We have some firms who have done that, but I hope that over time we will be able to convince other Spanish firms that this is the right place to establish their central hub in Asia.
Mr. Ambassador, if I may balance the interest, I'm sure there are other business opportunities that Filipino businessmen can explore in your country. Can you name some of this, which you feel that Filipino businessmen can very well get into?
Well, there is several areas in which the Philippines has a potential to grow. The exports of fishing products, where the Philippines has a potential to, and the maritime resources, And you know that Spain is one of the large worldwide markets for fish. The consumption of fish by the Spaniards is and has always been very high. And then in more elaborate electronic components is the other area in which I think there is still a lot that can be done by the Filipinos. And then I think we have to think more in terms of joint ventures. I think the Filipino companies have an experience in this area where they can help their Spanish colleagues to warm them up to work together in this area. And I hope that would be the case.
The final stretch of our one-on-one interview with the Spanish ambassador to the Philippines after we pause for another break. I'll be right back.